Hi there, motorcycles and cars enthusiast. Happy to see you on the 3D Motorcycles channel. Today let's talk about one of the greatest comebacks in sport, if not in whole history. And as always, watch till the end to fully embrace today's story and learn the hidden facts. You might have already guessed who our hero today is, yet do you really know everything he went through and why experts call him the greatest? Marc Marquez, the phoenix on two wheels, the prodigy child who regained his MotoGP crown in 2025. Have you ever seen someone defy the impossible? Someone who crashes, breaks, falls, and yet comes back stronger, faster, and hungrier than before? In the world of MotoGP, that someone has a name that echoes like thunder across racetracks worldwide: Marc Marquez. From a tiny boy riding mini-bikes in a small Spanish village, to a fearless teenager shattering records, to a seven-time premier-class world champion whose aggressive style changed the sport forever. And in between 2020 and 2025, a broken body, a shattered career, and whispers that he would never return. But legends don't fade quietly. They rise again. And in 2025, Marc Marquez delivered the storybook ending nobody thought possible. A return to the top, a world title snatched from the jaws of doubt. This is not just a story about motorcycles. This is about resilience, obsession, and the human spirit that refuses to be broken. And, believe it or not, but also about love and friendship. So, how does a boy from Cervera become the Ant of Cervera, the gladiator of MotoGP, the phoenix who burned and rose again? Buckle up, because this is Marc Marquez's journey. Let's start from the childhood and the birth of a prodigy. We are in the mid-1990s. In the small Catalonian town of Cervera, Spain, a boy is born in February 1993. His name, Marc Marquez Alenta. Now ask yourself, what makes a legend? Is it destiny? Is it environment? Or is it just sheer willpower? Marc's parents, Julia and Rosa, weren't celebrities. They weren't rich. They were normal working-class people who loved their sons, Marc and his younger brother Alex. But what they gave Marc was more valuable than money: support, patience, and the freedom to chase his obsessions. And his obsession was clear early on. At just 4 years old, Marc was already tearing around on mini-motos. Imagine it. A tiny kid, helmet barely fitting, knees poking out awkwardly, yet eyes laser-focused like a champion in the making. His father built makeshift tracks, tinkered with bikes, and became Marc's first mechanic. His mother. She worried, of course. What parent wouldn't? But she also knew her son had something special. And here's where the story gets goosebump-worthy. When Marc was just 8 years old, people in the Spanish minibike scene whispered, "That boy rides differently. He rides like he has no fear." But was it fearlessness or was it calculation? Marquez's secret, even as a child, was reading the track like a chessboard. He didn't just ride, he studied. He understood angles, lean, braking points. By the time most kids were learning multiplication tables, Marc Marquez was learning how to bend physics. And with that, the journey to greatness began. Part 2. The meteoric rise. From young talent to MotoGP king. By his early teens, Marc was already making headlines in junior categories. In 2002, at just 9 years old, he won the Catalan championship. A year later, he was Spanish champion, and not long after that, he entered the international stage. Here's the suspense hook. Imagine being 15 years old, nervous, skinny, still figuring out your teenage identity, and suddenly you're racing in the MotoGP paddock surrounded by global stars. That was Marc in 2008, making his debut in the 125cc World Championship. And it didn't take long before the kid was not just participating, he was dominating. By 2010, at only 17 years old, Marquez won his first world championship in a 125cc, becoming the second youngest rider ever to do it. But wait, it gets wilder. Just 2 years later, in 2012, he moved up to Moto2. And what did he do there? Oh, just win the entire championship. His aggressive overtakes, last-lap lunges, and refusal to settle for second made him both feared and admired. Fans chanted his name. Critics called him reckless. But one thing was certain: nobody could ignore him. And then came 2013. The year the sport changed forever. Marc Marquez debuted in MotoGP with Repsol Honda. Everyone expected him to struggle. After all, MotoGP bikes were beasts compared to Moto2 machines. But did Marc back down? No. Instead, he tore up the record books. First race, podium. Second race, victory. By the end of the season, he became the youngest MotoGP World Champion in history at just 20 years old. Pause for a second. 20 years old. Most of us at 20 are still figuring out who we are. Marc was busy conquering Valentino Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, and Dani Pedrosa, legends of the sport. From there, the dominance continued. 2014, back-to-back titles, winning 10 races in a row. 2016, 2017, 2018, 2019. More championships, more battles, more proof that Marc wasn't just a champion. He was the ultimate champion. And the way he did it? Pure theatre. His impossible saves, the ones where his elbows skimmed the asphalt as his bike slid at 200 kilometers per hour, only for him to somehow keep it upright, became internet legends. Fans would gasp, commentators would scream, and Marquez would smirk behind the visor. By the end of 2019, Marc Marquez wasn't just a superstar, he was a phenomenon. 6 MotoGP titles, 8 World Championships across categories, and a reputation as the most daring, spectacular rider of his generation. But then, everything changed. Part 3. The Dark Years. Injuries, setbacks, and doubt. The world shuts down with the pandemic, but MotoGP returns, and so does Marc. In the very first race of the season, at Jerez, Spain, disaster strikes. Marc crashes, hard. His humerus bone, the upper arm, shatters. The injury is brutal, but Marc is Marc, fearless, stubborn, unwilling to accept defeat. Just days later, he tries to come back. Yes, days, with a broken arm. And here's where his bravery crossed into tragedy. The arm wasn't ready. Complications set in, multiple surgeries followed, nerve damage, infections, months out, seasons lost. Fans who once saw him as invincible now wondered, is this the end? Between 2020 and 2022, Marc's career looked doomed. Every time he tried to return, new injuries hit, shoulders, vision problems from diplopia, double vision, endless pain. The man who once seemed superhuman was suddenly fragile, vulnerable, human. But here's the emotional beat. Did he give up? No. Even in his darkest moments, Marc said, "I will come back. I don't know when, but I will." It became less about winning titles and more about rediscovering himself. Could he adapt? Could he ride differently? Could he evolve into a new kind of rider? The motorcycle world held its breath. Part 4. The comeback and 2025 world title. The Phoenix Rises 2023 and 2024 were transition years. Marc left Honda, the team that had been his home, his family, his empire. It was shocking, emotional, and symbolic. He chose a new path, betting on a fresh project, chasing that last spark of greatness. Then came 2025. The narrative was set. Marquez, older, scarred, doubted by many. Younger stars like Francesco Bagnaia, Fabio Quartararo, and Jorge Martin were ruling the roost. The sport had moved on, right? But Marc had other ideas. Race by race, he clawed back. Podiums returned, wins followed. His riding wasn't the reckless abandon of youth. It was smarter, more calculated, but still thrilling. Fans noticed something. The fire was back. And in a season that will be remembered forever, Marc Marquez clinched the 2025 MotoGP World Championship, his 9th world title, his 7th in the Premier class. Pause and let that sink in. After 5 years of injuries, doubts, surgeries, and setbacks, Marc did the unthinkable. And how did the world react? With tears, cheers, and awe. Because this wasn't just a victory on the track, it was a victory of spirit. It was a lesson. No matter how far you fall, no matter how broken you feel, you can rise again. The legacy. So, who is Marc Marquez? He's not just a racer. He's a fighter, a showman, a symbol of resilience. His childhood in Cervera gave him the roots. His rise gave him the glory. His injuries gave him the scars. And his comeback, That gave him immortality. And here's the rhetorical closer. When future generations ask, who was Marc Marquez? What will we say? We'll say, he was the boy who dared, the man who fell, and the legend who rose. To close, if you like my channel, then share your thoughts, hit the like button and subscribe to stay up to date with latest exciting releases. P.S. Please also let know which personalities inspire you the most, and if you want more exciting content right now, do check other videos on my 3D Motorcycles channel.